build my gallows and build them high. Makes a long time climbing before I die.
Hello folks, it's Matty from Longbangers. Welcome to our first go at Twitter space. Colin's also on the Longbangers account. Colin, you're on mute. Do you want to come off mute?
Yes,
Nice.
I think I'm off mute.
Yeah,
Is that working?
that's you. Hear you.
Everybody,
Hear you fine.
hello.
So this was just something we wanted to try. I'm shamelessly stole it from Marvin Bartlett, right? Because I know Marvin Bartlett wasn't the first person to do Twitter Spaces. We kind of had a go when it first came out, but I'll be honest, I didn't have a fucking clue what I was doing, and ended up just talking to myself for a wee while. But Marvin was on with what's the boy's name? Charlie Austin. I think they played together at Bradford, something like that. Burnley. Thanks, Colin. So they were talking sort of Premier League, and then Marvin had reached out and says, "You want to come on and talk about Hibs?" So we went on and chatted a wee bit about Hibs, but it was fascinating. Like, it was just like almost like a live version of a podcast. So we thought we'll put one out tonight. Talk about episode 165, which just went free yesterday. Subscribers would have had it very late night on Sunday night if they'd sat up for it, or early Monday morning if they're sensible. So if we invite folk in, come and talk about the episode, tell us if you think we were talking shite, if you agree with what we were saying, but also just to kind of get a feel for what everybody's thinking about Hibs at the minute as well. So this is recorded, so if you volunteer to speak, just be aware that it's recorded, and we might, if I can figure out a way how to do it, put it out as content. If you want to speak, just there's a wee request button at the bottom left of your screen on Twitter. So once you do that, it'll send a wee request, and Colin and I will invite you into the conversation, and you can come on. Just would ask, as we do when we have new folk on the podcast and that we're not really into sort of like racism, sexism, or isms, that kind of thing. So if you've got those sort of views, then hear them here. Then I'd say anything that's going to get us properly into trouble. We always kind of, I think, raise a fine line on keeping ourselves out of trouble. So if you're coming on to speak, just be respectful. If you want to call us cunts, that's fair enough. We don't really mind. But other folk on the call or on the space might mind that, so don't say it to them. I call them, mere meaning you here, if somebody's coming on with something to disagree. So I suppose just if there's any points that you want to just jump in, just hit the request button and you can come in. Colin, just to kind of kick us off, we're a few days since we recorded the podcast. Have you had sort of like any change of mind or any views on the game since we're a few days down the line now?
I actually can't remember what I said
Brilliant.
on Sunday. So I might have changed my mind, but I didn't think so, because it was just that bad, wasn't it? Apart from that 20-minute spell where we were all right and looked like we might have went on to win it, but just the thing that gets me is, I don't know how many people listen to the extra time one, but when we were talking about, it's like our attitude when we go to Livingston that's the problem more than anything else. To me, like we were going in there knowing we were going to lose. Like, we all knew it. We all knew it was going to be a hard game and we would struggle, and it was like the players knew that as well.
Aye, I thought extra time was quite an interesting conversation. I had a few messages from folk on the back of it. So if you're no subscriber, what we talked about on extra time on Sunday night was pretty much just Hibs' recent record against Livingston. So the stat that we picked out was, I think if this is a stat or a fact, right? Fact, we'll go with that instead. Livingston have beat us the last 4 times, and each time we've had a different manager, right? Which is incredible. But actually, we talked about a bit about the psychology, like a bigger team going to somewhere like Livingston, whether Livingston get the credit that they're due, because I think we're all guilty of sort of just saying Livy will just sit in, they're physical and that's all they've got to the game. But actually, Livingston have got a lot more to their game than that. And whether there was something in it, I suppose, with like players who are used to having all the advantages of a club like Hibs have. So Hibs got a bigger budget. We've got a bigger stadium, the training centre. like all these sort of things, like even kind of turning up in a bigger team bus, like things like that. Whether that makes it more difficult for the players coming off that team bus to then kind of get up and realise how much they have to raise their game or play at peak performance in order to get a result. I just think it catches folk out a lot. Harry, you requested to speak. I'll bring you in, mate. How you doing?
I'm good, mate. How are you?
Oh, very good, mate. Yeah.
Superb. I've got a conspiracy theory I'd like to run by you guys if you're ready to hear it.
Excellent. Is it to do with 9/11?
No, quite. I thought that might have been a bit too risque, so it's more to do with Livingston Football Club sabotaging our season.
Right.
So, back in the summer, Hibs decided to get this new head of operations boy in from Livingston. What the club didn't realise is that they've planted that boy with Hibs. So, that boy's conveniently messed up with a League Cup thing. So, Rocky's been suspended in the league. Which game does he miss through suspension? Who has a stinker? Rocky's replacement. If we had Rocky at the weekend, we would have won. Livingston, I've used a conspiracy theory, which is that new boy, the head of operations, and that's why we got beat.
So he's a deep-rooted plant. Was it? I thought Rocky missed it because he was injured. I thought his suspension would have kicked in for a League Cup game. So
I know, but see, the thing is that would be logic, and I'm just going for full-on conspiracy, so it's less factual and more me just trying to feed into a narrative.
Right. So, that I suppose goes right up our street of Longbangers, and we would say, Colin, that's we'll accept that as actual factual going forward. Raymond, as well, I'll put you on mute there, Raymond. So if you're coming on as a speaker, until you're kind of asked to speak, if you just jump on mute. But you've unmuted yourself, Raymond. What did you want to chat about?
Aye, it was what you were talking about earlier there, Matty. When we were sitting at the game there watching it, if you remember, the first half was absolutely dire, yeah? And it wasn't until the second half, when you get Boiler coming onto the park, that you start to see a little bit, let's say, excitement and some drive for the team. You remember about, I don't know, it was maybe about 5-10 minutes into the second half, he got fouled, just the usual sort of foul that he would get fouled all the time. Mm-hmm. But he made a big deal of it. He jumped up and he started getting on their faces, and then Porteous got involved and basically got the crowd up and cheering and shouting, a wee bit gladiatorial stuff. And from that point on, we really, really took the game to them. One of the few points of the game, I might add. But I think the point I'm trying to make is we don't appear to have that player in the team. You know that, the way David Gray used to, let's say, put in a hearty challenge. And when we do get that, it's it tends to be Porteous that does it, and it does it in other wrong bloody places, To be fair, David Gray was a right back, so he's more likely to do it out to the side of the pitch. But Porteous, when he does these things, tends to be in areas of danger that other teams can capitalise from. So maybe, we could do with that someone in the middle of the park that's going to just throw themselves around a bit and sort of impose themselves in the game.
It's a good point, Raymond. Colin, we talk about leadership quite a lot on the podcast, right? Raymond, are you eating crisps?
Maybe.
Right, I'm going to mute you just until I ask you a question again, because Colin has a phobia about food.
No, it's all right. I'll stop. Put them away.
Now it's fucking brutal, man. Get him on mute. Kick him out.
We're going to change your name to Russell.
Oh, this is brilliant.
Right, hold on, let me mute you, Raymond, and then you can come back in when you're ready. Colin, we talk about leadership, right? And it's one of the criticisms that gets levelled at Paul Hanlon a lot, right? That he's no captain material. Again, obviously, he's literally no captain now because they've given it to David Marshall. But the perception was that because he didn't shout and ball at his teammates, that he wasn't a leader, right? And we've kind of routinely debunked that idea, I think, when we're talking about it. Do you think what Martin Boyle and Porteous did when we're kind of getting a fight there, is that the sort of leadership that we're missing, Paul?
It's some of the leadership we're missing, aye. I mean, there's no doubt. That's what we spoke before, as you say, like that they just going in and getting everybody up for it, like get the crowd up for it as well. We had more there as well than there was Livingston fans, so it's like get the crowd up for it by just putting a challenge in, and that's what it was. They got challenged. You know what I mean? They started a fight, if you like, as much as you get a fight in a football pitch. But It is. I mean, that's it. Look at the over the years. The David Gray's a great example. A leader that didn't ball and shout all the time. It's the kind of thing that gets on my nerves because, as I've said plenty of times, but folk think you're a captain if you're not a captain if you didn't shout enough. We've got the keeper as the captain now. You're not going to see him bawling and shouting probably unless he loses a goal because that's what goalies do. Not because he's the captain. It's just you didn't need to be bawling and shouting to be a captain. You need to take the players with you. You know, like look at the boys we've had over the past, like over the years, like even McGinn and that, and Bartley and Gray. That team was full of them. It wasn't just the boy that shouted. It was a team of leaders, and we've not got enough of them. But it was good to see Boyle coming in and doing it right away because he probably wasn't the one we would have classed in that category in years gone by. But he's a bit older in that now, so maybe seen it was required.
You mentioned the age there, Colin, being a wee bit older. And Raymond, because you raised this point, I'll bring you back in here if you want to finish your crisps first, then come off mute. Hibs have gone out and signed loads of young players. The average age of the squad has come right down. Do you think that's one of the things that you could attribute to a perceived lack of leadership?
You there?
Aye.
Aye. Sorry, beg your pardon. Well, no, really. I mean, if you take it, we can all turn around and say, for instance, Porteous is a young player, but Christ, he's played for, I don't know, 3-4 years now. So, I mean, that's a hell of a lot of football games, hell of a lot of experience. Hanlon's obviously got lots of experience. And I agree completely with what Colin's saying. The whole shouting aspect, that's bollocks. You didn't lead by shouting. You lead by example. You lead by setting examples. You lead by putting in those challenges. You lead by getting the crowd up. You know, just doing the wee things just to get the team and the supporters on side. So the age aspect, not really. There's players in there that are more than capable of doing that. I mean, what I'm saying there is, I suppose I'm kind of saying that someone like Kenner should be throwing himself around a wee bit more, but that's no. It definitely isn't the case because he is young. You shouldn't be looking to somebody like that to lead. You should be looking at one of your senior players to do that. So, to my mind, Porteous is a senior player despite his young years. Hanlon's a senior player. The goalie's a senior player. You could argue Cadden as well. So there's plenty in there. There's plenty in there.
Aye, that's a fair point. Kaiser, you want to come on, mate? What have you got to say?
Just for last week, well, obviously speaking on the weekend about it, and then you obviously take a bit of. I was listening to what Colin was saying about the pitch and how it was embarrassing and that, and I was kind of sitting. I agree with him, thinking, it is embarrassing. Like, we're playing against Livingston. We should be turning. I know we can say, Livingston have done well, but you go to that ground, do you know what I mean? It's like, it's Hutchie Vale that we're playing. We should be turning them over. The budget we've got, the players that we've got, we should be learning teams like that. And see, to be fair, like, obviously, we had last season, a bit of kind of a loser's mentality going on. We've jumped into this new season. I think we've tried to give Hibs a bit of the benefit of the doubt here, and I know there's a lot of work to get done with brand new players. There's like 10 new first team signings. They've got to bed in. Martin Boyle not exactly fit, but we need points on the board and all the whataboutery. And as I say, I think tactically and how we're set up our best team, I don't think we're quite there yet, and I think we can very quickly see this season fucking slipping away for us if they didn't get a grip of it very, very quickly.
Can I just say, I wasn't saying it was embarrassing. The pitch is embarrassing. I'm not bothered about the pitch. Just
no.
I was saying it's embarrassing your mentality.
Using that as an excuse. No, and I agree with you totally.
Aye. I suppose that was one of the things we talked about in extra time, is it? About like Hibs should, like, inverted commas, but should be beating these teams. And I think the argument that I make for it is, and I talked about this on extra time as well, so apologies if I bore folk, but Celtic and Rangers, when they play, like when they come to Easter Road, we hope to get a result against them, but we never ever expect it, right? Realistically, we didn't expect it. And sometimes we'll beat them, But more often than not, Celtic and Rangers will beat us, and they do that because they can afford to buy better players. Like the advantages that they have over everybody else. I mean, to the point where I actually find it ludicrous that you have the BBC or Sky Sports asking the managers, Ken, how did you win the game today? And you go, you fucking mental, how did you win the game? You win the game because they've got like a 25, 30 million pound budget, and the team that they're playing can't spend 1 million on their whole team. Do you know, it's like ludicrous. It's not even a game, it's like going on cheat mode on Football Manager almost for Rangers and Celtic. But it doesn't mean they can't be beaten, but over the course, it's why they win everything. But by the same token, Hibs have got, I listed it earlier, you know, like the big fan base, which gives them a lot of money. They've got a rich owner. They've got a cracking training centre. They've got good youth development. All these advantages should at some point be paying dividends. So when you go to play St Johnstone, St Mirren, Livingston, the odds should be stacked in our favour the same way that the odds are stacked in Rangers and Celtic's favour when they play everybody else. But it just never ever transpires that way. And they can call. Is it because the gap between us and Livingston isn't as big as the gap between us and Rangers and Celtic that it doesn't matter so much, or is it more to it than that?
I don't know. So the gap's big, but it's no. What was it? I'm just thinking back to a report that was out last year, or was it a report of some journalist put on saying the difference between like the Premier League in England and the Premier League up here, you know, and it's huge in terms of.
But
you see, it's a bit it's relative, isn't it? But it's no mass. It is massive, but it's no massive. You know what I mean? Again, that sounds ridiculous, but it feels more achievable to reach. Whereas the difference between like even Celtic and Liverpool or Man City is like just unachievable. You know what I mean? The actual the distance.
Aye.
So I don't know how they think it's achievable because that's 30 odd years. Never like nobody even getting close to it.
It's Colin. It's the other way around, mate. Statistically, it's the way the figures balance out. We, as a club, and the rest of the clubs in Scotland are so far away from the old firm that it would put us somewhere in about kind of League Two, competing with a top Premiership team as a comparison.
Right.
And I suppose then, if you look at Hibs and Livingston as a comparison, and so obviously I don't care what wages Hibs and Livingston players get, but the difference between a player on $3,000 a week, for example, against somebody who's on $1,000 a week might not be that marked, but that $3,000 a week to somebody who's on $20,000 a week is going to be quite a significant difference, you would think. So it does make it hard to kind of pull it back. Dougie, you were next up. I think you wanted to speak. Do you want to come on?
I'm nervous.
Yeah, totally. I just think that instead of panic buying all these young players, we should bring 3 or 4 actual talented players in one transfer window and build it up, other than just trying to make a whole squad in one transfer window.
Do you think it's panic buying? Would you I would have said, right, and this is what I would challenge you on that point, mate, because I think it's a good question, right? But for me, Hibs haven't panic bought anybody. I think Hibs have gone with a really clear strategy. I'm not saying it's the right strategy, right? I think that remains to be seen. But the strategy has been going to pick up players who are maybe younger but have a big resale value, so there's potential there. Or are at the other end, so you look like some McGeady and David Marshall, Martin Boyle, who's in his peak, right? So that was like an opportunistic one rather than a strategic signing, I think. But that, I don't think that sounds like panic buying, Dougie. What do you mean by that?
Like I'd say Boeing and Runner Hogg, they were both panic buys. Off Martin Boyle leaving, we had to get a right wing to replace, so anyone would do, I'd say.
All right, you don't think they're like, so I suppose Hogg was kind of earmarked for the development squad, so he was brought in with a view to not really replacing Martin Boyle, but getting into the first team in maybe a season, 2 seasons time.
Yeah, I mean Daniel Mackay as well, eh? I mean, I don't see any of them breaking into the squad now that they're both on loan.
What sort of players do you think we should have been going after?
I don't know, like actual, like not like someone with we need more experienced players.
I think is there anybody you would like to have seen us go after?
I can't remember specifically, but more I would have seen players and went, oh yeah, he'd be better than him.
Fair dues. Thanks very much for your point there, Lee. You were up to speak as well, mate. How's it going?
Don't know if he's there anymore. Is it Leon, maybe?
Oh, Leon, sorry. I just only saw the first couple of letters. Leon, sorry, mate.
Don't ever
No,
call me Lee again.
sorry.
No disrespect, Lee. It's just talking about like the expectations. We should be doing this, we should be doing that against Livingston's, blah blah blah. That was Livingston's fourth win against us in a row.
Mm.
So we've no right to be doing anything against Livingston.
It's a bit arrogant, eh?
Aye, and we've not got any right today. Okay, you can talk about budgets and that, but our budgets, it doesn't matter about budgets at our level unless you're competing against Rangers and Celtic because they're not that far away from each other. And we've brought in how many new players? 9, 10, whatever it is. And again, obviously Martin Ball's not technically a new player, but the amount of mucking about that we've done with the amount of mucking about we've done with like the squad and then try to build the squad and get a team playing together, it's a huge turnover. And just expecting that to happen overnight, I think it's madness. I think the centre half situation is obviously with how long we've got to talk about needing a centre half for about fucking what feels like 6 windows, and it's still. I mean, Rocky was brought in, and you can argue that we've been crying out for a centre half. There is your centre half, but I think we were more looking for something more of a more experienced player or a signing that would get people settled on it and say, actually, this guy's going to play and start every week for the next 3-4 years. But I don't think. I think going to places like Livingston, it's hard for everybody. You see Rangers and Celtic. I mean, I'm sure Celtic hadn't won there for about 4 years or something. It was something ridiculous like that.
Celtic's record. So John stuck a wee article up on Hubwave, right? So again, just a wee pitch for the subscription. So if you subscribe, you get like obviously extra time. You get some extra content.
Worth every penny.
There's also some written content, and John had sort of compared Rangers and Celtic's records against Livingston over the last few years with ours. And I think we were, what was it called, a win and 2 draws away from the matching Celtic's record.
We played more games, though, I think. We played less games, I can't mind. Yeah.
I think we had a couple more games than Celtic. Celtic's record was not good. Rangers' record was much better. I mean, they didn't really seem to have that much an issue with it. But if you look at Celtic and you look at Hibs, it wasn't like a huge difference in it. But then that goes back to what we were saying on Sunday. It's like you need to give, as much as we talk about what Hibs didn't do, you need to give Livingston credit for that.
Totally.
They obviously are good at sort of just knowing how to play these teams.
Did you see the analytical boy? It's an analytic guy. I can never remember his name on it. Hibs.
91-25.
Aye.
Yeah.
And he broke it down as how Livingston set up. And I was watching that and I'm like, how do you beat them? Honestly, when he was showing like our side, how we were set out and how they were set out and how compact they were in midfield and how they were covering easily doubling up on us in the midfield and stuff like that. I was like, how do you actually get past? How do you stop that? And obviously the ball at the top, the long ball, is the only way you really get behind these teams and hurt them. And they done that against us. They got the ball. I mean, I'm not saying they were a long ball team against us because they did play a wee bit as well, but they had the big boy up front and they done brilliant. And they ken what they're doing. They set themselves up. And a lot of folk, I'm going to discredit the manager there, but he's done a brilliant job. And every time they got a good result, he practically dissects his tactics on his post-match interview. And everything he says, you're like, aye, I can see exactly what you're doing there. And it sounds daft. It sounds like someday, I'm not discrediting him here. He actually breaks it down so basic that it sounds like somebody talking about it in the pub or at like an amateur level or something like that, about how he does it, and this is how I'm going to play. And I thought we could hurt them here and hurt them there. And he comes across like brilliant. Obviously, I wouldn't want him as head manager, but I'm just saying that again, I think a lot of folk turn their nose up at Livingston because of their pitch and everything. I'm not a big fan of their pitch. I think artificial surfaces should be in the top league. I think everybody should be playing on the same surface. But
I think folk turn their nose up at it and they're like, oh, we should be taking fucking 10 off them. When at the end of the day, it's nobody does.
It's funny, right? So you mentioned that about kid. You give Martindale all the credit in the
Martindale.
world there, right? And then say, wouldn't know what I'm at Hibs. And we talked about this on Sunday night as well, Colin. Like, and it's true. There's if Hibs had gone instead of like Lee Johnson or John Daly Thompson that we were looking at, if the name that had emerged as a candidate for the Hibs job had been David Martindale, everybody would have went fucking rage about it.
Yeah.
And you're like, he finishes above Hibs last season, like on a tiny budget. And by the way, Livingston's football wasn't terrible on Saturday. Do you know, like you watch some teams like St Johnstone, you watch St Johnstone are shite, right? You watch them, you think, imagine sitting through a fucking season of that, because they're just, there's nothing there really. You watch St Johnstone and like unbelievably they've got a double, can beating us in a fucking cup final, but they're awful. And you look at that, that's no Livingston. So
Definitely not.
why would you turn your nose up at Leon? Why would you not want him as Hibs manager?
The only issue I've got with them is, I mean, although we're saying that they didn't play like St Johnstone, I still didn't like the way they play. I kind of want their team to be streetwise, but they're a bit more streetwise than I'd want my team to be. That if they take the lead, they just battle and scratch for it and hopefully win 1-0. Or, I mean, I'm saying that they beat us 2-1, but do you know what I mean? Like, it's hard to. I'm trying the best way to explain it, but it's like I feel like I didn't think they'd be set up. I think he'd set up to play a more. He wouldn't be able to set up to play as an expansive game, maybe. But maybe I'm just discrediting him. Maybe I'm.
It is though, because it's like it's almost an inbuilt snobbery, isn't it? Because
It
if
is.
he had more money, you're saying he can, maybe because he explains it in such a basic term, then folk can understand it.
Aye.
And then it works. So if you had better players or players that cost more money rather than better players, maybe it could be even better.
I totally agree with you, and that's what I'm saying. I think it's on my end as well. Like exactly that, like a snobbery. Watching them and listening to them, and obviously seeing them pick up results here and there. I think they say, "Oh, the Livingston, hard place to go." In my head, Ken. But then you're not actually thinking to yourself, "Oh, they actually played all right." You're just thinking to yourself, "Oh, they've done the right stuff, and they've got they've done a job on this team, they've done a job on that team." Because again, I still feel on Saturday, although we played poor in the first half, if we'd came away and won 2-1, folk would have been saying, good performance, Hibs. Ken, good way, Ken, turn that around. They wouldn't have been saying, oh, Livingston should have won that. That was the only thing I thought about that on Saturday. Was it Saturday anyway? Aye. So, aye.
Aye. It's interesting what you see what you mentioned about, and Cole, you touched on there about explaining it in a basic way. See, was it Lewis Stevenson when we had him on the podcast was talking about Beckenbottom, and it was like overly complex. Like the tactics were, like he was like talking about setting traps and doing X and Y for the pressing game when we were playing Hamilton. And Hamilton obviously just shelled the ball, and so none of it could be put into practice. But it was like overcomplicating things. And I think Maloney had that criticism against him as well, where there was a rumour about one of the experienced players in the team sort of actually stopping the training and saying, "The fuck are you actually wanting us to be doing here?" Because it was too complex. So maybe football is a simple game, isn't it? Like it's a simple game made complicated by folks. So maybe there's an argument to say that that's what you want. That's a sign of a good manager if they make it sound dead straightforward.
If you get the basics right first, then the rest will follow it. And it seems to be the basics that we're fond of for me. Like the can't stop for all last season and before, can't stop crosses into the box and then losing headers. Can no get into the first header at corners, things like that, and losing poor goals that were things that you're always looking, thinking, why, or again, even or scoring. Like we just seem to, I just didn't think we looked dangerous at all. We've not looked dangerous since Jack Ross's first season. No first season, you know what, the season we finished third. Whereas I thought we looked really dangerous that year because we had three top players on top form. But ever since then, I felt like we didn't look dangerous. Even the basic, getting down the line and cutting across, and we're not finding players and we're not doing tap-ins. And it just seems, I think everyone just seems a bit laboured at times, Ken. And that's where maybe the basic stuff needs to come in first and get them. I'm not fucking telling Lee Johnson out to coach, but you know what I mean? Get the basic stuff in, and then like what something like Martindale would do, because I guarantee he would. He would get the basics done first. He would make sure you're doing you're working hard, you're battling, you're beating your man, and then the rest follows for that.
Aye. Lee, you did want to speak this time. Thanks, Leon. I'll bring you in, Lee. And you can tell us what you want to say.
Evening, guys. Long time no speak.
How's it going?
Aye, all right, mate. I'm just working away. No, just a couple of really good good points Leon made there, and I didn't really say that lightly, given it was Leon and he called me Lee. So a point on Livingston, right, is Livingston's recruitment's been spot on. You've got to look at some of the players that they've got in their team in terms of the way that they compact the team in itself, and obviously sitting back, catching teams on the counter. But their midfield and wing backs are particularly strong. You've got Omiyonga, who we know obviously is quite a decent player. Whether or not he'd fit in Hibs obviously is debatable. But you've got people like Mickey Devlin. Mickey Devlin's a brilliant wing back, and he suits the way Livingston play. You've got the big guy up front, and as much as I hate to say it, Jason Holt is a brilliant player for Livingston in the centre midfield. He controls everything. And what we did lose in the first half is we didn't get control of the midfield. They pressed us. The first goal, obviously, we all know what happened. It was slow motion, but ultimately we just weren't good enough at clearing the ball. And obviously the second goal was purely down to a defensive error when the cross came into the box. But apart from that, I thought, like, especially the second half, I thought Hibs done relatively well. I thought we got the ball a lot quicker to the front three. But like Leon said, is that's probably the first time in a long time that I've actually seen Hibs properly attack. But we only seem to do it when we're behind. So like Lee Johnson said on Saturday, is that fundamentally we've got to get in front, and then obviously he said maybe if we're up 2 or 3 goals, whatever it may be, then obviously then we can sit back and then play like the way that we are. But we just need to get more on the front foot, and it just seems to be. I remember way back when we had the conversation about Hibs playing in 2 halves. That doesn't seem to have changed over the last, in my opinion anyway, over the last 6 to 8 months. Like, we just have a laboured first half, or a better second half, or a good first half and a shite second half. We're just not consistent, I think.
You're spot on. The thing that we've got a goal in front, like, it sounds dead basic, right? But you look at, I think I want to say this because I hate giving the bastards credit, right? But Hearts, see the season in the Championship when we were all down there. Hearts that season just went out the first 20 minutes of the game and battered teams. They came all guns blazing, got their noses in front, and then that's it. They went on and won the league at a canter. On Saturday, they had Dundee United, right? A tough game on paper, right? And Dundee United with a point to prove as well on the back of a pumping in Europe. 45 seconds into the game, they're a goal down. Because Hearts just came in and they spent, see if we get right into them. And the shook run, was the full time score 4-1?
4-1, aye.
4-1. And it comes off at that start, because then Dundee United, right away, their game plan is out the window, and they're asking questions of each other. So I think Hibs need to find a way to it's like we always try to feel our way into the game. Do you know, like, find our feet, and that is what went wrong on Saturday. We thought we could just play the game at our pace, and they forget that there's another team there that are like, well, these are going to play slow, take the ball off you and score.
Yep.
So they need to find a way to kind of have that sort of explosive start to games. Good point, Lee. I've got Andrew McBee. You want to come in? How's it going, mate?
Hey, mate. How's it going?
Are you on your holiday still?
Nah, back now, mate. Back into the grind, unfortunately.
Well, at least you brought the rain with you, yeah?
Aye. To be fair, though, it was blistering hot, and it was like the end of Shawshank when I got off that plane last night. I was happy to see the rain and the cold.
You know how to climb through a mile of pipe of shite, no?
Nah, well, apart from Hibs TV on Saturday afternoon, that felt like crawling through a pipe of shite, so...
Anyhow. Anyway, what's your point? Colin?
What I was going to say was, listen, as I say, I watched it on the dodgy box in Spain, and I just think one of the big problems we have is we just don't have a clear identity about what it is we're actually going to do when we go out. So you're talking about Martindale there, and Martindale has it nailed to the wall with the players. The bare minimum I expect you to do is work hard, hassle teams, etc. I'm still lost with what it is we try to do on a Saturday. Like you, for a long time, exactly what you've said there is we feel our way into teams. It doesn't into games. Sorry, it doesn't seem to be an urgency and everything. And then we cheat ourselves because when we do go a goal down, that's when we come out and try to be attacking, expansive, and all that. And it's a cheat. Like it's too easy to come out when you're a goal down. The real thing is come out and have a go for the start. It's not even that. This is 3 different managers we're seeing this under as well. Like this is a guy that's brought in 8, 9 his own players with a right back there that's not even getting anywhere near the starting 11, and that's curtailing Cadden going back into right back, which really frustrates me, to be honest with you. I think he should be pushing further up. We've got a guy, when we're bringing Deutsch, I know Deutsch didn't start on Saturday, but when we have brought him on last year, this year, he's not getting balls into his head where his strengths are and everything as well. It just seems a mess as it stands now. Just as I say, to me, it just doesn't seem like we've got a clear identity, clear idea about what it is we want to do. And you would think even at this stage, and I know it's really short, that you would start seeing the fruits of it a little bit, but just know it's pretty bad when our main danger man is Boyle and he's not kicked the ball since the end of June. So tough times ahead, I think, lads.
That's full move optimism. Cheers for that. Colin, what do you think of those points? Valid?
Aye, yeah. I mean, I was thinking, I can't remember who it was speaking, if it was Lee or Leon, but we've actually didn't really look like scoring unless Boyle's on the pitch, and that's all this year. So after he left in January, we didn't look like scoring until he came back. You know what I mean? He's like the only threat we've got, or the main threat, definitely the main threat, but like it never feels, we went months of looking just like blunt. And you know, it's we seem to have a bit back now, at least.
Aye. We've got a couple of messages come through on the Twitter feed as well, so I'll see if I can figure this out and talk through them as we go.
Mike, can I just make a quick point on the model where we're talking about the club's models? So one thing, obviously, we've been watching in the Premier League, for instance, is you've been looking at the consistency like Brighton and Brentford. If you look at their models, right, is that they've obviously got young, ambitious managers. What they do in the transfer market is they're kind of signing the same agey players as what we are, like in their 20s and their 21s, potentially loaning them out, bringing them back in, and then obviously they're having really good seasons. Obviously, I know the model that we're building is obviously we're building like B team mentality, is that the guys that are coming in are maybe 18, 19, 20, 21, whatever it may be, and then obviously sellable assets like someone mentioned earlier, and then hopefully making it into the first team. But obviously we watched Brentford and Man United at the weekend, and the way Brentford took Man United apart. If you looked at the valuations in the squads, I think Brentford's come up at 55, and obviously Manchester United were about £450 million.
Mm-hmm.
I think obviously the budgets are a really big problem in football. There's absolutely no doubt about that. But if you're a well-run football club, and I'm talking from top to bottom, having the right model in place, the right manager in place, and having the right squad, there's absolutely no reason in my mind why you cannot, at least I'm not saying challenge, but compete. Do you know what I mean? Like compete with these kind of teams. Like I remember when we were under Mowbray, like I'm not saying the model was great, but we were buying young players, we were exciting to watch, we were hammering Rangers and Celtic. We used to go to Ibrox and win by 3 goals. Do you know what I mean? So like ultimately, if you've got the model there and you've got the consistency approach there as well, then there's absolutely no reason why you can't compete. Challenging, as I say, might be a little bit forthcoming, but I think the model, if you get the model right, you've definitely got a chance.
Aye. So what do we think about Hibs model then now? Because it's early days. Like I would say, because COVID derailed everything, right? And you had those 2 seasons really where we would have expected to make progress, but we never, because we had no fans and etc. And then everything kind of got everything contracted at the club. They could let staff go, shrunk the amount of players that we had, and all the rest of it. And now it's at the point where they're expanding again. So I think that now they're really just at the foundation side of that that model. So
I think
are we thinking it's the right model and it needs time, or are we setting off down the wrong path, Lee? What do you think?
I think it's a intriguing model. I think obviously some of the conversations that have been had, and obviously Hibs have went down to visit Brentford. Obviously we've had links with Brighton as well. So obviously these clubs are being looked at in terms of a consistent model. I know Ron, obviously we joke about it, but he's like, well, I want to follow the Atletico Madrid model, for instance, in terms of the way it runs in Spain. I do like the model. I think it is a model that could work, but like somebody said earlier, I think you need to compensate that also with experienced players on the park. I think potentially what we are doing is that we're putting our eggs all in one basket in this window by signing really good young potential good players. But I think you need the experience to back that up. And I still think before the end of the window, we might sign one or two, hopefully, experienced heads to help the younger players. But there's absolutely no doubt that if you get this model right, it's an absolute moneymaker. I've said to you before, obviously, I do the Football Manager research. The young laddie that we were linked with, the striker, is it Grigor? I think it is. He's technically classed as an FM wonder kid. Do you know what I mean? Because I like his ratings and all that kind of stuff. So as I say, I know we joke about all this stuff, but it's actually reality that Hibs are actually going out and looking at this talent. Like Ruben McAllister, he was linked with the likes of Chelsea, Newcastle, and he came to Hibs. So there's obviously something attractive about the model, and I think it will work in the future. I just think we're maybe trying to hurry it along when we maybe just need to take a little bit of a step back, get the right the right system on the park with the blended experience and young players. But I do think that the model is the way forward.
Colin, what do you think?
Well, we have signed experienced players in this window. I think a lot gets made of the young players, but I don't know if we're rushing ahead with the long-term stuff, which is the youngsters. We've signed Marshall, McGeady and Boyle in the window already. I don't know if I missed anybody there, but there's 3 experienced players immediately.
Sabraya, at 25 as well.
Yeah.
Probably shoot him into that.
They are doing both. It's just that a lot of the focus, because we're not winning matches enough, a lot of the focus is going on, we're signing all these young laddies, we'll be a good team in 5 years and all that kind of chat. But we are signing experienced players. And I don't think any of them would be classed as a bad signing. We've not seen enough of McGeady yet, but I mean, we know what he's done in the past. So based on that, you've got to think he's going to be a decent signing. The keeper's like the best keeper we've had in years. And Boyle's one of the best we've had in years as well. So
aye.
I don't think we're ignoring the experience. Maybe just not got enough yet. We're definitely missing a couple of positions, like centre half. Is one, and because Nisbet's out, if Nisbet was fit, we wouldn't be saying we need a striker. We're only saying we need a striker because Nisbet's out for another few months, probably. But then again, I mean, even the guy, Yuan, that played on Saturday, is he a youngster or is he like sort of? I can't remember.
Is he not 20, 22, 23?
No, he's not a youngster then. I mean, you're youngsters when you're 18, 19, even maybe.
Excuse me, I'm 33 and I'm still a youngster. Thank
no
you
chance.
No danger. To you, mate.
Have you realised your days are gone yet? You're never going to
I'm clinging on.
Healthy here.
But so I think we're doing both. To answer the question, it's not clicked on the pitch yet. If it clicked on the pitch, we'd be saying, how could this sign on all these youngsters? They're all got to come in and they've got to back up this great first team. But it's because we've not got the results yet. If we'd beat Livingston on Saturday and we had 7 points out of 9, we might have been starting saying that stuff.
It's a good point you make there, right? So we were close to it, even if we take a point, considering we had a bad first half, if we come back and rescue in the second half, probably folk are coming away not quite as annoyed as they were on Saturday, right? I had a wee look on Hibs.net earlier, right? And there's a thread there, it's like stale or something. And somebody saying, this season feels stale already. So it's 3 games in. And the next person was like, we've had a fortunate draw and a fortunate win on this season and then a defeat. I was like, is it because it's late goals? How come it's fortunate if we get the goal, but it's deserved? Like, it was a deserved defeat because we lost the late goal. An expected defeat, that's what they said. I was like, it feels like we're one bad result away for another full-on meltdown again, eh?
Yeah, there is a lot of panic in the support for some reason. It's like, it's almost like we're still. You're just waiting on the knives coming out for the manager. I think there maybe some are already out, getting sharpened. Like, you see some of the threads and that on the message boards, and you think he's had 3 games. Like, he's had the League Cup, fair enough, and that wasn't great. But he's had 3 league games and he's lost 1. And I think everybody knew at the start of the season 2 of the hardest away games, other than obviously Rangers and Celtic and Hearts. That's 2 of the hardest ones, going away to Livi and St Johnstone. Certainly for Hibs, yeah. And Hearts at home. So, like, how many points did we think we were going to come out with? 9 points out of that? I don't know. I mean, I would have probably taken 5. I would never got 5, but that would have probably been my target at the start. I would have been quite happy with, and then any more than that, I would have been delighted with.
Is that you accepting mediocrity, Colin?
Of course it is. That's what I always do.
That's a standard. Right, I'm going to bring in former Hibs legend Marvin Bartley as well. Marvin, welcome our chat. Thanks for coming on. What have you made of the chat so far?
Too much doom and gloom. That's why I came on. I'm actually out walking my dog. So if you hear me shout Diego, that means he's ran off somewhere. But no, it's been good. It's been good to hear people's viewpoints on different things. And I agree with some, disagree with others. But football's about opinions, isn't it? And that's why we love it. But no, the club will be fine. Like, it will be fine. I get what you guys are saying about the model and bringing in young players, etc., etc. I think it's a brave thing to do, but I think if it works, then 18 months to 2 years' time, the club are going to be in a fantastic position. And I know there might be some hard times between now and then. A lot of boys that came in from kind of outside of the UK. They're getting used to Scottish football. They're getting used to each other also. And that takes time. I came into a Hibs team that had a few changes, but most of them are UK based. So we're used to the style of football where, when we played you guys at the weekend, I felt when Melkerson went off, things kind of went in our favour until obviously Boyd came on at half time. You all know what he's about, but he's just not fit at this moment in time. But, we were well aware of what Melkerson was going to try and do, and it was about us trying to stop that. His out-to-in runs are fantastic, and we knew that Cadden was going to bomb down the right-hand side also to try and support that. And they tried to do it a couple of times. If you watched the game back, or if anyone actually watched the game then, they were trying to get Cadden against Scott Pittman in the box, which is a massive mismatch, and it was something we had to try and deal with. But obviously Melkerson went off, I think, with a groin injury, I think it was. So, it did help us. But I definitely think the club will be fine. I just know it's tough at the moment. And like somebody said there, it's a draw against Hearts, it's a win against St Johnstone, it's a defeat against Livingston. So there's no need to absolutely panic. The club want to be in the top 6, I get that, and pushing for Europe, 3rd and 4th place. That's where the club wants to be. But I think with this model, you have to give it a bit of time.
Martin,
go on.
Sorry, Mark. When you guys were going out on Saturday, where were you looking at Hibs and going, there's a real weakness, there's a mismatch for us? That's where they're not up to much, etc. I'd be interested to hear that perception.
I don't think we would have turned around and said there was a massive weakness. It was about what we could do kind of in the final third. Things you do in the final third win you the game. If you can score more than the opposition, as basic as it sounds, and you win the game. But we also knew kind of the attacking sense. We needed to nullify kind of your attacking movements. I think Hibs are playing a way now where they try and get in behind teams massively. And, we worked all week on trying to nullify that. How do we stop that? How do we, if Paul Hanlon plays, stop him from hitting that diagonal that he loves to hit? If Porteous plays on the right-hand side, be careful of the balls that he'll try and hit them behind. You saw Porteous step in a few times, and, we did say to ourselves, if he comes into the middle third and he steps in, then don't panic. Just narrow off, let the ball go wide, then we'll deal with it from there. We Fitzwater and Iobala were happy for the ball to come in the air, from crosses, etc. So, it's not just about how do you stop teams from doing something. It's if they do manage to do that, what's the next step? And obviously, the next step for us was, trying to stop that, and we did. Hang on, my dog's ran off. 1 sec. Come on, you this way. Yeah, so no, that was kind of it for us. But yeah, if we get the ball up to Big Joel, he's a massive handful as well, and it's about getting Scott Pittman as close to him as possible. And we managed to do that. Obviously, Joel scored early doors, which helps with your game plan. And then, when we score our second goal, there's no time left to go, is there? So it makes it extremely difficult for you guys. But no, listen, it was a tough game for us, but one we're happy we won.
Nice one, Rich. Just conscious of the time, I'll let you get back to walking the dog, and I'm going to bring in Matthew, who was looking to speak as well. Matthew, you're on mute, so if you take yourself off mute and bring yourself in, mate. How you doing?
Did I use this? Oh, hello.
That's you. Hello. What do you want to say?
I feel we should re-sign Lee Griffiths and Jason Cummings. In my opinion, two very good players. We should get them back, Lex.
Are you at the wind-up?
Nah, seriously.
Have you come on just to get, like, are you trolling us here?
Check his profile.
See how many bites you can get. Like, something quick.
Maybe, but good sign Cummings.
Nah.
So, Cummings is actually a player, and we don't have any good strikers, like out-and-out goal scorers anyway, I feel. Like, Dodgy, in my opinion, he should go. Doesn't do anything. Dundee are wanting him, and then Championship's probably his level, so should just send him there.
And you think Griffiths and Cummings would be...
Nah, no Griffiths. Griffiths is finished, like, but I reckon Cummings would actually add something up, like, more to us, if you get what I mean.
What did you make of Ewan so far?
I think he's good, but he just, like, he plays a bit too out wide. Like, when we were playing against Hearts, I feel he should have been playing more central, and Ewan Henderson going out more out wide, because we didn't really have a striker there, I felt, until...
You're right. I agree with that. Even in St Johnstone game, he was doing that. He drifted out. I think it was him. The commentators even mentioned it on the TV at the time. He's out there doing all the good work, and then when the ball comes in, he's not there. And if we're only playing one through the middle, you can't have them drifting away out to the sides all the time. But I'm quite impressed with him so far.
I actually thought he looked effective when he went, like, second half on Saturday. He played really on the left side, and he was on the end of quite a lot of diagonals, but he seemed to get in behind loads for that position. But then we had Deutsch in the middle, I suppose, which is, and then the boy Bojang after that. So I suppose like that kind of compensates for that. If you've not got them in the middle, you can't really have Yuan out wide. Do you think, Matthew? Do you think strikers are a problem area, or would you prioritise other areas if you were going to strengthen?
Oh, no, definitely get another centre half. And like Paul Hanlon's finished, he's shite. We should definitely look to get more centre halves in because our depth isn't there. We had a 37-year-old Darren McGregor on the bench, which isn't good. And we're Rocky picking up on that. We should definitely be looking for another centre half. Like,
felt for Paul Hanlon on Saturday because Kenny wasn't. I think he would have played if everybody had been available. I think Paul Hanlon would have played. I think he looked ready at all for that game. I think he only had 45 minutes and the Wednesday night before, and it's a big ask going up against like a physical, like a physical attacker. Like he was on a hiding to nothing with that one. I would have been happier with Rocky starting there or a fully fit Hanlon. I think a fully fit Hanlon probably makes that challenge. But it was a bit harsh for him. Right, anyway, we've got a few minutes left, Colin. I'm just going to... There's nobody waiting to speak, I don't think. Matthew, thanks very much for your point there.
No,
we've got a few tweets. So, Ian, I think Ian, you might still be listening, asked, are we suffering from the delayed arrival of players and the loss of McGeady and certainly Deutsch falling completely off the radar and scoring performance charts? Colin, what do you think there? Do you think that the work permit issues and everything impacted us?
Aye. I don't know if when they've not got the work permit, I assume they can't train either. Like, I don't know the like legally, I don't know if they were training or not, but I assume they couldn't train with the team because that would be working. So they're going to have missing the pre-season, no time to settle in and get used to the other players to play with. So aye, definitely. Deutsch is, since that injury he got, he's just never recovered from it, has he? The Achilles last year.
No.
What was the other point? There was three. Aye. I agree with all he said, really.
Aye, so the other point was McGeady getting injured.
Aye, because it's just another option, isn't it? We don't know how good he would have been, because, again, what did they do 40 minutes against Norwich, if it was even that much?
Aye, and then the League Cup games that he was in.
Mm-hmm. Aye, but you could see he was getting up. I thought he got better in each one of them. So he was getting better, and then he gets injured. Now you're going to have to go through it all again. He's got to do his pre-season again, and do the 3-4 games again till he gets good, so...
Aye.
Keep it a while.
Dave Graham says, can't talk, but geez, we should take advantage of this. Can't talk, but we're basically an experienced centre-back and an experienced box-to-box player away from having a top 4 team. then the younger players don't have as much pressure on them. What do you think of that call?
Yeah, I mean, I think everybody knows we're missing a centre half. Jack Ross called it out for us 18 months ago, or only a year ago actually. But we're still missing that centre half that he wanted then. So, yep, and the box to box is McGuinness, isn't it?
Aye, well, McGuinness, if he ever recovers, I hope he does. McGuinness a cracking player, and I suppose you can't spend his wage twice, can you?
No, that's exactly what I was going to say. I mean, he'll be in a good wage. He's what, 4, 5? They sign a 5-year contract. So he's got 3 years left. So you'd be doubling that up as well. So they're probably thinking just get him fit. But every time he nearly gets fit, he breaks down again. So it's unfortunate, but I don't know what we do about that.
See, when McGuinness is fit, like to say this weekend, right? Hibs have kept it quiet, but he's available for selection. Who drops out for the midfield to give up a place for him, Cole?
For McGuinness, it would be. Well, it depends. What is the midfielder now? So it was on Saturday. It was Newell,
Kenna, and Henderson.
I'd imagine it'd be Henderson.
That's interesting because Henderson's obviously one of the newer signings.
Yeah.
So, you look at him as cover for McGuinness, or is it like a longer term replacement for him? Do you think?
I think they're different players. Like Henderson doesn't appear to be a box to box midfielder, does he? Like he's more nice touches around the box. So it depends if you change the formation or what you're doing. Like we're playing 3. Depends who you're playing. You'd maybe drop Kenna and say we don't need that type of player in there. I mean, Marvin's been on. Marvin suffered for that, didn't he? But at home against Hamilton, we'll not play Marvin Bartley, sort of thing. That was the thinking with a lot of the managers at the time, because we'll play more attacking players. So maybe it would be that. I don't know. It depends on the formation you're playing, I think, to how you fit them in.
It is. Right, a couple other tweets that we might have time for. Let me quickly scroll through. It's quite hard to scroll through the tweets. And
can we hurry up? Because I'm getting a hassle from my wife as well. She's got to knock both my daughters out, is the text I've just had. Because it's the day before school, so they're starting to play up. Yeah, so let's do that.
Charlie Mulgrew thinks you made that. Says bring Marvin home. LG and Cow 456 said, could Kenna play centre half if we can't get someone else in? I think he can. Like that was one of the things that Lee Johnson said. That he could play in at centre half if need be. So maybe he drops back and when McGuinness comes in and they do that. Who knows? Anyway, so 3 minutes if we've got to split up Warren parents and daughters. So thanks everybody for jumping on. If you contributed, thanks very much. If you just listened, thanks very much. I hope you have listened to the podcast. The chat's like this. If you're new to Longbangers, it's like this, but probably not quite as intellectual because it's normally me and Colin and John that are talking, and we kind of lower the tone a wee bit. We have a podcast out on a Sunday night if you're a subscriber, Monday night if you're not, and then a sort of comedy podcast on Thursday with short bangers. Occasionally do a wee mental health one called Heat Bangers, which is in HQ. If you've got HQ for Hibs this quarter, have a wee look for there's a Longbangers changing room article. If you want to subscribe, you can go to https://longbangers.hubbwave.net. It's only £3 a month. It helps us kind of keep doing their stuff like this as well. So if you're not a subscriber, there's loads of extra content as well. We'll probably stick this out on it as well, so for anybody who never joined in. Anyway, if you think this was a good idea, tell folk about it. We'll have another one next. What day is this? Tuesday. Next Tuesday, so after next week's episode, we'll put we'll come on again and invite you to talk about how we did against Rangers. In the meantime, thanks very much for coming on, and we'll catch you all later. Cheers.
Well, they trailed me down when I broke free. I drank all the whiskey in Tennessee.